Hey everyone! In this video, we're going to explore the top 10 countries where Americans face travel and relocation challenges in 2024. We'll uncover the destinations that aren't so friendly to US travelers. We love celebrating the ease of travel, but sometimes geopolitical issues make things tricky. So get ready for a look at the toughest places for US passport holders. Number 10 is Somalia. Let's start with Somalia, a country that you might hear about but not always for the right reasons. Located on the eastern edge of Africa, right next to Ethiopia and Kenya, Somalia is known for its stunning coastline and beautiful landscapes. But behind that, there are some serious issues you should know about. Why Americans aren't welcome. First up, let's talk about the instability. Somalia has been dealing with ongoing conflicts for years, which makes it a pretty unstable place. The government is weak, and there's constant fighting that affects everyday life. On top of that, the safety risks are pretty high. The country faces frequent terrorist attacks and has a serious problem with piracy, especially along its coast. If you're planning to visit, you should know that Somalia is considered one of the most dangerous places due to high levels of violent crime and frequent kidnappings. The US government even advises against traveling there for most people, suggesting that if you do go, you should be prepared for some serious risks. So much so that they recommend drafting a will and leaving behind DNA samples before entering. Number 9 is Russia. Let's dive into Russia next. This vast country has been in the news for a range of reasons, and not all of them are great for American travelers. The geopolitical tension is hard to ignore. The ongoing conflict with Ukraine has really strained relations between the US and Russia, making it a pretty hostile environment for Americans. Diplomatic tensions have led to increased scrutiny and sometimes even outright hostility toward American visitors. In recent years, the US and Russia have been expelled each other's diplomats. Even before the current conflict, traveling to Russia was a major hassle. Getting a visa isn't as simple as filling out a form. You need an invitation letter from someone in Russia just to apply. Then you're faced with a lengthy application process that requires a ton of personal details. You'll need to list every country you've visited in the past 10 years, detail your educational history, provide your parents' names, and include information about your work and any professional organizations you belong to. It's quite the ordeal just to get a visa. Number 8 is Libya. All right, let's dive into Libya. This North African country is known for its ancient ruins and diverse culture, but right now, it's not exactly the easiest place for Americans to visit. Since the fall of Gaddafi's regime back in 2011, Libya's been in a constant state of conflict. There's been a lot of fighting among different groups, and the country hasn't had a stable government for years. This ongoing chaos makes it a pretty risky place. Now add the US involvement into the mix. With military actions and political moves, the US hasn't exactly won any friends in Libya. This involvement has led to some strong anti-American feelings, which definitely doesn't help if you're thinking of visiting. Traveling to Libya right now? It's not exactly straightforward. Most countries, including the US, have travel warnings for Libya because of the high risks of violence, kidnapping, and terrorism. The situation there is pretty dangerous, with the risk of getting caught up in conflicts or attacks being very real. As for how locals feel, the ongoing instability and conflict have shaped their attitudes towards foreigners. Many people are understandably wary of outsiders, including Americans, and the infrastructure and security are lacking. Number 7 is Nauru. Nauru might be one of the most elusive travel destinations out there. It's a tiny island nation in the Pacific, and not only is it the least visited country in the world, but it's also the third smallest by land area, measuring just 8 square miles. Economically, Nauru is heavily dependent on Australia. This reliance is due to its role as the host of a controversial immigration detention center. This setup means Nauru isn't exactly a tourist hotspot, and getting there can be quite a challenge. For Americans dreaming of visiting, the process isn't straightforward. First off, you'll need to reach out to Nauru Immigration by email to request a visa application form. Don't expect a speedy response. It can take a while to get back to you. Along with the application, you'll have to submit a certified copy of your passport's identity pages, proof of an onward flight, and either a hotel reservation or a sponsorship from a local resident. The whole application process can be quite tedious and time-consuming. Number 6 is India. India is an amazing country with tons of cultural richness and breathtaking sights. But before you start planning your trip, there are a few things you should keep in mind. There are some places where it's best to stay away from. The India-Pakistan border is a hotspot for tension and conflict, so the US government advises against traveling there. Also, Jammu and Kashmir have been dealing with a lot of unrest and conflict lately, so it's safer to skip this area. Even in popular tourist spots, you need to stay alert. Some areas can attract petty criminals, and there have been cases of violent crime. It is a good idea to avoid traveling alone. Traveling with a group or a local guide can help you stay safe. It might be a bit much for some travelers. So while India is definitely a place full of incredible experiences, make sure you're prepared. Coming at number 5, North Korea. Now, this might not come as a surprise, but it's important to understand why this reclusive nation makes the cut. North Korea has long been isolated from much of the world, and its relationship with the United States has been rocky, to say the least. With a history of strained political relations, North Korea is one of the most difficult countries for Americans to visit, let alone feel welcome in. The ongoing tensions between the US and North Korea have created an environment where Americans are viewed with suspicion. The two nations have a history of conflict and political standoffs, and while there have been moments of attempted diplomacy, the overall sentiment remains hostile. North Korean government strictly controls all aspects of tourism. Americans are only allowed to enter the country as part of a guided tour, and even then, the rules are rigid. You'll be closely monitored by government-appointed guides, and there's little room for personal freedom or exploration. One incident that stands out is the tragic case of Otto Warmbier, an American student who was detained in North Korea in 2016. Accused of attempting to steal a propaganda poster, Warmbier was sentenced to 15 years of hard labor. He was eventually released in a coma and tragically passed away shortly after returning to the US. This event underscored the extreme risks that Americans face in North Korea and served as a stark warning to others considering travel there. If you're an American planning to visit North Korea in 2024, think again. The combination of severe travel restrictions, potential dangers, Number 4 is Syria. All right, let's talk about Syria. This place has been in the headlines for all the wrong reasons for over a decade now. The ongoing conflict there has made it one of the most unstable regions in the world. You've probably heard about the civil war that started back in 2011, and unfortunately, things haven't gotten much better since. Well, the US has been heavily involved in the conflict, supporting various groups and conducting military operations against ISIS and other targets. This involvement has led to a lot of resentment and hostility towards Americans. Many people in Syria see the US as meddling in their affairs. There's ongoing violence, frequent bombings, and a high risk of kidnapping. The infrastructure is damaged, and the humanitarian situation is dire, with millions of people displaced and struggling to survive. And then there's the issue of terrorism. Various extremist groups operate in the region, and the security situation is volatile. Travelers can easily find themselves caught up in conflicts or attacks, making it incredibly dangerous to visit. Number 3 is Venezuela. Next up is Venezuela. It once known for its beautiful landscapes and vibrant culture, Venezuela is now facing a severe crisis that makes it less welcoming for American visitors. The country has been experiencing a severe political crisis, with protests and unrest becoming common. The government, led by Nicolas Maduro, has faced widespread criticism and allegations of corruption. This political instability has led to a struggling economy, with shortages of basic necessities like food and medicine. Traveling to Venezuela comes with significant safety concerns. The U.S. government has issued a travel warning due to the high risk of violent crime and civil unrest. There are reports of armed robberies, kidnappings, and violent clashes, making it a risky destination. Number 2 is Eritrea. Eritrea, a small country in the Horn of Africa, might not be on everyone's travel radar, but it's worth noting why it's a difficult destination for Americans. Eritrea is known for its strict government control and lack of political freedom. The government, led by President Isaias Afwerki, has been criticized for its human rights record and suppression of dissent. Political opposition is not tolerated, and the media is heavily censored. And at number 1, we have Iran. Surprisingly, quite a few Americans visit Iran and enjoy the vibrant carpet markets in Isfahan, the ancient ruins of Persepolis, and even the hidden local shops in Tehran. Believe it or not, this isn't some far-fetched idea. It's actually possible to travel to Iran with an American passport, despite the State Department's warning to avoid the country due to the risks of kidnapping and arbitrary detention of U.S. citizens. Terrorist groups also operate within the country, contributing to the volatile security situation. This advisory holds weight because the relationship between the two nations has been strained since the 1979 Iranian Revolution. Since then, an oppressive regime has governed the country, denying its people basic freedoms, like the right to free expression. This atmosphere of intolerance has extended to the general population, with many Iranians being unwelcoming to Americans in their shops or hotels. However, there is a solution. In recent years, more Americans have been visiting Iran through officially sanctioned group tours that both governments approve. Independent travel isn't an option. You'll need to book through a government-approved travel agency like Epic Backpacker Tours. Even so, the visa process is lengthy, and spontaneity is out of the question. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the countries where Americans are not exactly rolling out the welcome mat in 2024. If you found this video eye-opening, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more content on travel tips, surprising facts, and everything you need to know about navigating the globe. Have any thoughts or questions about these countries? Drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think.